Hello, YouTube. The Byzantine Empire, also known as the Eastern Roman Empire, was the continuation of the Roman Empire and centered on the city of Constantinople during late antiquity and the Middle Ages. Having survived the events that caused the fall of the Western Roman Empire in the 5th century Common Era, it endured until the fall of Constantinople to the Ottoman Empire in the year 1453. The term Byzantine Empire was coined only after its demise because its citizens used the term Roman Empire and called themselves Romans. The empire was largely dismantled in 1204 following the sack of Constantinople during the Fourth Crusade. Its former territories were then divided into competing Greek rump states and Latin realms. Despite the eventual recovery of Constantinople in the year 1261, the reconstituted empire wielded only regional power during its final 2 centuries. Its remaining territories were progressively annexed by the Ottomans in a series of wars in the 14th and 15th centuries. The fall of Constantinople to the Ottomans in 1453 brought the empire to an end, but its history and legacy remain topics of debate to this day. And this empire played a very important role in the development of ancient Russia. And of course, I have an interest to it. But my main interest is in the secret intelligence services of the empire and their battles with the enemies, their clandestine operations in the lands that combine the modern states of Russia and Ukraine. I have a few videos about the empire, but I will prepare the one about the espionage and special operations of its spies in the future ones. Just remember, those spies also encountered strange phenomena, you can call it paranormal, in their missions in the pagan lands, populated by Slavs and other tribes and ethnicities. And of course, they had Vikings to deal with. Those spies, well trained and tested, they took notes, albeit clandestinely, and in ways that the pagans would not be able to read or understand. But that's for the future. Today, I want to talk about another very important subject for human beings. What did those Romans, later known as Byzantines, eat? What foods did they consume? Well, I'll give you an example. The 11th century Byzantine writer Kekav Man, a Greek military man, a writer, and a cheapskate, from what I understand, mentions in his collection of tips that you need to eat once or twice a day. In the morning, warm boiled food, fish, beans, cabbage, cheese. This meal was called ariston, an analog of brunch. And in the evening or in the afternoon, just consume bread and wine. This meal was called dipnon, something between lunch and dinner. Interesting dinner, right? But, need and reality are different things. Other sources mention that usually the Byzantines ate 2 or 3 times a day. They had porridge of vegetables for breakfast. Lunch and dinner were more intense. First, appetizers, sausages, salads were served, followed by meat or fish dishes seasoned with sauces and washed down with wine. The meal ended with delicious sweets made from honey, milk, nuts, fresh fruits and berries, as well as confectionery. From numerous Byzantine sources, it can be learned that the inhabitants of the land, Romei, as they're called in Russian, or Romans as they call themselves, consumed meat in fairly large quantities. Dishes of beef, pork, and goat meat were common. Sausages with hams were also cooked. But smoked food was not so famous because it was quite tough. The meat was usually seasoned with garlic and mustard. Moreover, it was eaten more in villages than in cities. But the villagers most often used the meat of old, sick animals, which was fraught with frequent poisoning. It is worth noting that meat was consumed for the most part in the interior of the empire. Fish was common in the coastal territories. Fish soup was often prepared from fish, and the reason being that Byzantines, unlike the inhabitants of Western Europe, were very fond of various soups. Cheese, eggs, and milk can be added to the products of frequent consumption in the empire. A fairly large abundance of vegetables was used in the preparation of dishes, or they were eaten raw. For example, in the written sources you can find mention about seasoned beets or specially cooked peas, which is very intelligent, very smart, because beets are definitely good for humans. And you can find it in the ancient sources. I believe the Talmud mentioned that too. And common people in the land I come from, they consume beet. I should mention borscht as one of the best soups around. You can eat it raw and so forth. But again, that's up to you. Peas, I think that some of the best things for you are peas and beans. But let's get back to the empire. Wine was a significant addition to food. Its beautiful color was appreciated by the Byzantines, who also loved to savor its aromas. But the wines were different in quality. There were varieties that resembled vinegar, just to quench thirst. Egyptian wine was considered to be the lowest quality wine. It was very tasteless, cheap, and was called mareotic because it was produced in the area of Lake Mareotida. The highest quality wine was from the Holy Land, and Muscat from Cilicia, Armenia, was also appreciated. In the churches of Amida, for example, powdered wine was prepared. After 7 years of exposure to the sun, it literally became dry. The powder dissolved in water produced a liquid resembling the taste of wine. The Greco-Romans generally respected wine and drank it almost daily. But there is a nuance, so to say, there is a catch. In modern Greek, the word wine sounds less krasi, and not like the Latin vinum or Slavic vino. That's because the Byzantines liked to dilute wine well with water, and it was this mixture that was called krasi. The proportions could vary, but they were often guided by ancient norms. You should pour only 1 part of wine, but 3 parts of water, Hesiodus advised in his Works and Days. Moderation in this matter was also supported by the Church. Wine is useful for human life if you drink it in moderation, says the Book of Wisdom of Jesus, the son of Sirach. But Bacchanalia, Dionysian orgies, and other wine cults were strictly condemned. Wine was added to the water for disinfection. It was not always possible to boil, and it was easier when wine was added to water and drank. And in summer, in hot climate, boiled water was also to be cooled. It was a complete hassle. So now you know why they added it. Bread was the basis of the Byzantine table. Up to 650 grams were eaten per day. Moreover, there were several varieties, and each had its own place in the hierarchy. The most prestigious was considered to be silignitis, a bread made from white, refined wheat flour, which was baked for the nobility, clergy, and even the sick. It was believed that it improves digestion, like medieval cocktail. Seidalitis was simpler but still of high quality, with a lower content of wheat flour. But the soldiers and monks received pexamas, twice baked bread, practically breadcrumbs. Thanks to this technology, it did not mold and was stored for a long time. But the Byzantines did not live on bread alone. Unlike Western Europe, they greatly appreciated soups, especially fish soup, as I said before, which was cooked with vegetables like celery and leeks. This made it turn yellowish. Meat was eaten more often in rural areas than in cities, and hare meat was especially appreciated. Hare, as in mammals, belonging to the genus Lepus. The Romans also loved eggs in fungato, a kind of layered omelette that resembles a sponge. It comes from the Greek word sfungari, sponge. Depending on the time and well-being of the cook, vegetables, cheese, and even meat were added to it. However, the Byzantines observed fast for up to 200 days a year. No meat or dairy products. What was left? Due to the great importance of Christianity, which was officially allowed in the Byzantine Empire in the year 315, the population strictly fasted, which accordingly implied a wide consumption of plant food, such as peas, chickpeas, garlic, artichokes, onions, okra, bay leaf, dill, mint, thyme, lettuce, asparagus, vespers, and mushrooms. Cereals, legumes, and vegetables were used quite a lot. For example, polta is a thick porridge made from boiled barley or wheat with lentils, beans, onions, and olive oil. Or the sweet placuntaria, pies made from puff pastry stuffed with honey, nuts, poppy seeds, or dried fruits. Probably baklava of today. And finally, olive oil. It was used everywhere. It was used to fill foods, lighthouses and lamps, lubricate cartwheels. Is it practical? Yes, indeed. Fruits and nuts also occupied a special place in Byzantine cuisine. Fruits could be eaten fresh or dried. This can be found, for example, from the description of the 11th century manor villa in Asia Minor. As a result, a garden adjoined the manor house in which apple trees, pears, cherries, plums, peaches, date plums, quinces, pomegranates, fig trees, lemon, pistachio, and almond trees and chestnuts grew. All this was used to make delicious desserts with honey and milk. The Byzantines had a special love for honey. It was brought to Byzantium from Africa. In addition to the widespread distribution of fruits, Byzantine cuisine was also famous for delicious pastries, pies, cakes, and other sweets. The dining room was usually located in the center of such a house. In the hall, 36 people could fit together at a large round table, which was decorated with gold and ivory. As evening fell, candles were lit in olive oil and nutmeg, camphor, acacia, amber, and musk were smoked near the bed. There were tables inlaid with ivory, gold, and silver in the living rooms. The aristocrats could afford sumptuous dinners every day. The assembled nobility ate reluctantly, without feeling, as one of the contemporaries wrote. The dishes were the subject of conversations, and it was decided at the table which dishes to cook and how to serve them. Before the start of the festive meal, the table was sprayed with incense. During the feast, the cook carefully supervised the servings of the dishes. The most delicious were pheasants and pullets, roasted on coals and stuffed with fish. I take it they mean fowl. Hare meat was considered a delicacy, and hare hunting was a favorite sport of high society. The food was seasoned with delicate sauces, which included herbs imported from India. In this regard, it's worth mentioning the special geographical location of the capital of Byzantium, Constantinople. This determined the fact that for quite a long time, the Basilevsos, the rulers of the empire, were able to control the Mediterranean trade. The importance of the Golden Bridge between Europe and Asia increased the influence of Constantinople. This meant that the trade in spices and sauces was very widespread throughout the empire. Byzantine meals differed in many ways, again, from those in Western Europe. And the main contrast was in the accepted hygiene rules. The inhabitants of Byzantium had access to water for taking baths, to washing, as well as thorough washing of dishes, utensils, and vegetables with fruits before eating, which was a very rare practice in the West. They washed their hands. The cuisine of Byzantium has left its unique mark on the culinary traditions of many people, ethnicities, who after the collapse of the empire separated and began to create their own culinary history. That's what I wanted to let you know today. I will come back to this very interesting country and state, and definitely I will tell you about the espionage services they used and the special foods they gave for their agents who worked far beyond the borders in the thick forests, strange lands of the surrounding countries. They worked against the Vikings, against the Arabs, against the tribes and people who beset the empire, against the Franks and so forth, depending on the threat present. If you like my research, please kindly support through the links you'll find in the description to this channel. If you are interested in different foods of Eastern Europe, I have a few videos. I'll try to put links in the description of this one about very unique foods of Ukraine, Russia, the countries I know best in that area, but also Belarus. I think you'll like them. Thank you for your attention to my work.